Okay. Greetings. Welcome back to Blackbird News, where everything is connected. Thanks for hanging out with me today and every day on the internets. Sorry for my lateness. I just had something very important to take care of, kind of right before the show, which kind of derailed my timing. But y'all know I'm usually good for being here at noon. Hold on one second. Just today was one of those days. But thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. Anybody that tuned into this my live stream last night, thank you for hanging out. A couple people came by, Obsolete Optics and some other folks. Appreciate y'all. I did get some coffees from Scott Andrews the other day. I'm sorry, Scott. I didn't actually say anything about it. I didn't mean to forget you. But thank you for the coffees. I appreciate it. We're live on Callin, Rockfin, YouTube. I don't know why I have to say it like that. I just enjoy it. Yeah, and the best ways to support this show are paypal.me/Kevin Sandbloom, Venmo @Kevin Sandbloom, Cash App @Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com/Blackburn News, and then, you know, the super chats, the super rays, and the do re me's, and the fa soli dotty dotties. Yeah. All right. Let's get into it, since we are here. Just checking out some chats over here on Rockfin, and what's up, Rockfinners? Rockfinners, mostly Denver and William. How you doing? There's other people watching on Rockfin, I'm sure. It does tell me the number of people that are watching on Rockfin. Anyways, I am going to bring a link that Denver posted the other day about masks, because somebody was talking about masks. Somebody left a comment about masks, but I think there are some things to know about masks which inform my decision or my viewpoint on masks. Anyways, but let's get into it, shall we? It is August 15th, 2023. Some people say that's a Tuesday. I say it's a I need more views day. Anyways. From Fenrir, there goes the harvest for many, many farmers, since next year will be even hotter thanks to El Nino. Don't expect a decent harvest from these regions until at least 2025, but probably only 2026. What is he talking about? He's talking about there's a strong forecast for a major heat wave to occur from the plains through the Midwest and South again, after a brief break starting later this week. I know it's been very warm, right? Midwest. Y'all let me know the temps where you are at in the Midwest and in the East Coast as well. But this doesn't look good. Now does it? We'll see a heat bomb explosion of records. That does not sound good. What's been going on all year? You know, the thing that people like to ignore, the thing that people explain away. It's always been like this. It's always been this rainy or hot or droughty or wildfiery. It's always been like this. What are you talking about? Wow, I can go check the records back to 1893. Okay. Problem is, problem is, when you have extremes, when you have record-breaking extremes, going in all different directions, right? Look what happened in Europe this summer. They went from record-breaking heat waves to record-breaking cold. Do you think the people that are growing food outdoors in Europe are having a good time of it? Probably not. Do you think their crops are going to make it? Probably not. What's happening in the United States? A lot of people are losing their crops to what? Drought, heat, all kinds of things. And so what you, and then look at China, right? You could take, or India, right? India already has banned rice exports of a certain kind of rice because of extreme weather, because extreme weather has impacted their yields. So, you know, in one region, that might be something that'd be like, well, okay, this other part of the world will make up for the lack. Will make up for the shortcomings, and then, but if you have that going on in each part of the planet, and all of the bread baskets, then what do you do? That's what I'm trying to ask you. What are you going to do? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And was it Obsolete that sent me the video from Guy? I watched. I started to watch it, and then I got sidetracked, and then I never got back to it. But I can imagine what he has to say. Maybe I should dig it up and play it. I don't know. Y'all want to watch the Guy McPherson video? Maybe you've all already seen it. Saints Great says crazy summer in Ottawa, double normal rain, 8 times lightning strikes, 3 tornadoes, flooding, smoke from wildfires. Yeah. It's just normal. It's just a normal summer. That's just regular. It happens all the time. Melanie says New Jersey weather has been up and down, warm and chilly, rainy and dry. It's crazy. Yeah. Well, we had the longest winter ever in Southern California, feels like. It went all the way into the summer. We had very strange, obviously, weather. We had tons of rain during the winter, and then the summer just like never came, just refused to come. Well into June, we had like super cold days and cloudy days, and actually some rainstorms. We didn't really get into summer until July. And then when summer came with a vengeance. It is now quite warm, and we're going to, all week it's going to be pretty long. Pretty warm is what I meant to say. Okay. Well, let's keep going. Alrighty. Terrifying sandstorm southeast of Iran. This is terrifying is a good word for it. Let's get some sound on this puppy. And some video. How about some video on this puppy? For the people in listening on call-ins, you could probably just hear the wind blowing. There's people like laying down, trying to get out of the path of the wind and the sand, and they look like they're struggling. Let's see. Let's Stay in the same region of the world, and let's talk about, there's a resort lake or a lake in Iraq. The lake has become a pond of stagnant water. So no more water. Iraq drought claims lakeside resort. The strategic water reserves in Iraq are at their lowest point in nearly a century. Khaled Shamal, spokesman for the Water Resources Ministry, has warned. Yikes. It's happened before. This happens all the time. Iraqi merchant Mohammed has never seen such a grim tourist season. Years of drought have shrunken the majestic lake Habinaya. I think that's it, Habinaya. Keeping away the holidaymakers who once flocked there during the summer. The last 2 years there was some activity, but now there's no more water, said 35-year-old Mohammed, asking to be identified by his first name only. He laid out inflatable water floats, nets, and shirts in front of his lakeside shop, but expected few, if any, customers. This year it's dry, Mohammed told AFP, his shirt soaked in sweat in the inhospitable heat of nearly 50 degrees Celsius. Whew, boy. That's got to hurt. Shorelines at Habinaya, about 70 kilometers west of the capital of Baghdad, have receded by several dozen meters after 4 consecutive years of drought ravaged parts of the country. Drought. And then some floods. How about some more drought? The United Nations ranks water-stressed Iraq as one of 5 countries most impacted by some effects of climate change. When full, as it last was in 2020, the lake can hold up to 3.3 million cubic meters of water, said Jamal O'Day Samir. But now the lake contains no more than 500 million cubic meters of water. That's a decrease of what? Like a 5 times decrease? That's crazy. To get to the water, visitors must walk through foul-smelling mud. Wow. That once was submerged under the lake surface. Anyways, the resort was created around the artificial lake in 1979, becoming a popular destination for tourists from across the Middle East in the following years. Declining rainfall over the past 4 years and rising temperatures have hit Habinaya alongside much of the rest of the country hard. Baghdad blames upstream dam construction by Turkey on the staggering low water level in the Euphrates River, which feeds the lake and also runs through Syria. The strategic water reserves in Iraq are at their lowest point. Anyways, United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk warned that rising temperatures plus the drought and the fact that the loss of diversity is a reality is a wake-up call for Iraq and for the world. Golly gee, lakes running dangerously low of water. Where have we seen that before? It's not like that's happening all over the world or anything. It's not like last summer every major river on the entire earth was running low. It's not like that was happening. I'll have to qualify with that with every major river in the northern hemisphere. It seemed like the Yangtze, the Seine, the Mississippi, the Po. How low can the Po go? And then you have Lake Habinaya. Yes, creative experiments. But a libertarian has a graph about how the models are wrong. And that might actually work if we were still talking about models, but we're not talking about models anymore. We're talking about reality, right? Climate change has moved into the phase where it's like, well, the models that from 20 or 30 years ago have now borne completely true, right? We're actually seeing the things that were predicted 20 or 30 years ago. So you have to stop saying, well, the models are all wrong. No, they're actually spot on. You just aren't really paying attention, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's keep going. Let's see. Let's talk about technologies that are going to save us from climate change. Y'all want to talk about that? It's like a box of chocolates. Deliberate distraction with proliferation of new whiz-bang technologies and ideas. Some are well-intentioned, some are strategic, some delusional, but most are outright greenwash. This is from Poppy Davis. So we'll look at this for a little bit. 10 climate solutions that don't help. All right, let's check it out. The Shenandoah is pretty low, contemplative. Yikes. Are they all well below normal levels? Many shiny new green ideas do more to preserve fossil fuels than to replace it. Ding. The world continues to face a major obstacle to addressing the climate crisis. Deliberate distraction with a proliferation of new whiz-bang technologies and ideas. Some are well-intentioned, some are strategic, some delusional, but most are outright greenwash to justify the continued use of fossil fuels and to distract from the inevitable move to less expensive renewable energy. Okay, that might be a fail. The fail is in the very first paragraph. But we'll see. Flathead Lake is 2 feet down. So is the Great Salt Lake, right? Great Salt Lake is lost a lot of water. Historically, the innovation and testing that would have carried out at research universities funded by government grants with a commitment to finding the best and most useful solutions. Today, much of this work is sponsored by individual businesses or sectors, notably by coal, oil, and gas companies. An entire suite of bad ideas is being pushed by a fossil fuel industry determined to slow global efforts to decarbonize. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. This week, the Climate and Capital team looks at some of these shiny objects, distracting the world from forming effective climate solutions. And some of those shiny objects might be renewables. So we'll see how this goes. The mother of all distractions, carbon capture and storage. Carbon capture and storage has long been touted by the fossil fuel sector as the answer to the enormous greenhouse gas emissions problem. CCS, not to be confused with direct air capture of carbon, involves collecting CO2 from power plants and then injecting it underground or using it for some other industrial purpose. Sources like Saudi Arabian negotiators and former Goldman Sachs CEO Hank Paulson argue for developing carbon capture technology while pushing back against efforts by the G20 industrialized nations to phase out fossil fuels. Anyways, forget the hype. This is the reality of the contribution of CCS to reduce emissions today. Virtually nil. Consider this simple chart created by energy sector researcher Keaton Joshi, comparing emissions generated by gas and all giants black bars to those avoided by relying on CCS technology green and another questionable solution carbon offsets purple. All right. So as you can see, it's very tiny. CCS offsets very little, if anything at all. So there you go. Not convinced? Consider there are 196 CCS projects globally in the pipeline, with 30 in operation, 11 under construction, 153 in development, and 2 suspended. The carbon capture capacity of all these projects is estimated to be only around 242 million tons per year. The International Energy Agency says capacity needs to reach 1.6 billion tons per year for the technology to be effective. So they need to ramp it up by, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 or 9 times what they have now. Okay. And all that construction, all that a building is going to require what? Some good old fossil fuel burning. So that's not going to work. Let's see. Attempts to build power plants using CCS are also numbingly expensive, and so far have all but failed. Oil giant Chevron recently acknowledged its flagship CCS project, built in 2017 off the northwest coast of Australia, is operating at just 1/3 of its capacity because of problems at the facility. Oh no. Who could have foreseen problems? Tim Buckley, Director of Climate Energy Finance and contributor to Climate and Capital, says Chevron's admissions are an indictment of the technology. Dismal operating performance since the plant opened 6 years ago shows the technology has little future. I think we read something about this already too, if I remember, months ago. Anyways, Buckley notes that the most carbon sequestration worldwide is aimed at extracting more oil and gas from reservoirs. Iron ore magnet and passionate climate solution technology investor Andrew Twiggy Forrest, just call me Twiggy, lashed out at CCS recently, saying it's a failed technology and a ploy created by oil and gas companies so they can continue extracting fossil fuels. In short, an industry just waiting for the next idiot to come along. Anyways, let's move on to deceptively distracting dirty hydrogen branded as clean by its proponents. Hydrogen, when used in a fuel cell, is clean, producing only water as a byproduct, but don't be fooled. The so-called clean hydrogen, we call it by its true name, dirty hydrogen, is being promoted by the oil industry to keep burning toxic methane gas. All right, we're going to just move quickly through this list, because I ain't got time for this reading all these words. My God. But I think we'll get the gist of it. 3, net nothing. 2050 net zero targets. If there's one blindingly obvious conclusion from this summer's disastrous weather, is that we are running out of time. This calls into question conventional wisdom to rely on squishy climate targets to create a net zero balance of releasing new carbon in the atmosphere with sequestering or taking other carbon out of the atmosphere. That's what it means, by the way. Just to explain it to the people that might be listening to other journalists out there who wrongly say stuff about net zero meaning no carbon whatsoever, that is just really bad. Just a really bad, not smart take on it. That's not what it means. It means that. It means getting the amount released equal with the amount, sequestered, so that we're at a net. Net means net zero, not right. Net. I also don't know if these folks understand what net means. Net means after you've added and subtracted everything, what you get is zero, right? Not zero carbon. Just zero carbon being emitted. That's what it means. All right. Net zero was always a compromise idea hashed out at the last minute at COP21 in Paris in 2015. It represented progress, yes, because it got nations to agree to a roadmap to reduce carbon emissions and send a signal that fossil fuels were over. Anyways, net zero is not going to happen, not at the pace we're going now. And it's just, and we don't have until 2050. And so it would be net zero is also one of those things I think it's a distracting subject, just like CO2 in a way is a distracting subject. basically we should stop, burning fossil fuels, right? But what does that mean? We're not even talking about, in general, we're not having the right conversations, right? Because what does it mean to burn less fossil fuel? Net zero is also a way to hide burning fossil fuels, right? So, to do this magic accounting to say like, well, we have this many offsets in place, or we have this, we've sequestered this much carbon so that we can continue to burn. It's just a way to prolong the oil and gas industry, obviously, right? So if we were talking about it realistically, we'd be talking about stopping and what that means to stop burning emissions, which would mean a lot less consumption by people, and eventually the realization that we need, less people consuming less things, right? Because of what we have now, the equation we have now is more people consuming more things. The population of the world keeps growing, and we keep consuming more things. That's what's causing climate change. So if you want to go in reverse, you need less people consuming less things. That's just kind of an obvious equation there. And then you'd have to talk about, well, what's the best way to sequester the emissions that are already in the atmosphere? Is it technology, or is it the natural technology that we already have to sequester carbon, which is plants, trees, green things, growing things? Yes, that's the way, right? All right. 4, BS, Chevron's renewable cow dung. Oh, I've never heard of this one. Chevron has a great idea and is pumping millions of dollars of advertising to promote renewable natural gas. It is renewable because it uses cow manure. Seriously, they call the process anaerobic digestion. Not only is it not really renewable in the same sense as wind, solar, or hydroelectric power, those are not renewables either. So this person, this whole article is greenwashing, if we really want to get down to it, because they're pointing at some things that are obviously dumb, but then saying, well, but these other things we're going to push forward as solutions that are not solutions. So this whole article is greenwashing. Anyways. Chevron markets it as a means of reducing life cycle carbon intensity while meeting the world's growing energy needs. The company says it's all part of Chevron's portfolio of technologies and solutions. Bottom line, renewable natural gas is Chevron PR, an effort to give their business a green veneer while staving off regulations that would curtail gas consumption. 5, silly, renewable race car fuel. Okay. Yeah, no. Okay, we won't even go. We don't need to even go any farther on that one. It's not race cars, okay? Racing cars is dumb, okay? Whether it's on a track or on a freeway, racing cars is dumb. It's a waste of time, energy. Sorry, guys. Sorry. My apologies. Okay. 6, embarrassing. Exxon's ill-fated green algae gas. Stop it. You may have seen Exxon ad featuring earnest-looking scientists as energy farmers, with the company claiming it is harvesting algae to produce renewable biofuels. After more than a decade and an investment of $350 million on the project, Exxon dropped the initiative late last year, saying we need to get on the deployment curve for carbon capture for hydrogen and biofuels. Algae still needs some more work, so they've already ditched this. And looks like they've spent over $400 million on it. And Exxon spent $4 billion for a carbon capture pipeline. Jeez. 7, most intense distraction, least carbon intensive oil and gas from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They are competing to be known as the least carbon-intensive producers of fossil fuel. Okay, there you go. 9, most annoying, a 50 billion tree planting project. Okay. Let's read about this one. Saudi Arabia unveiled plans in 2021 to plant 10 billion trees at home and another 40 billion across the Middle East. Yes, 50 billion. Planting trees is good. They provide shade, habitat, erosion control, water retention, carbon capture, and more. But massive tree planting projects have often fallen short of their promises. Failure to keep the trees alive is one major problem. Massive single-species tree planting have messed with biodiversity and died off from insect infestation, fires, and drought. Big tree projects tend to be a cover for doing business as usual. Counting and reporting on the success of tree planting projects has proven dubious. All right. 10 endlessly distracting traditional fission nuclear power. There you go. Well, glad they mentioned this. If you've seen the film Oppenheimer, you can understand that nuclear energy has challenges. The only thing that is more terrifying than going extinct from climate crisis is going extinct by nuclear annihilation. No matter how hard the nuclear industry tries, it is impossible to separate nuclear fission and nuclear bombs. Nuclear energy from uranium and plutonium have always been atoms for peace and the core fuel for thermonuclear bonds. That means as long as fission nuclear plants are built, there will be concerns about nuclear proliferation, how to store highly radioactive waste, and the potential for nuclear meltdown, to wit, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima, and now the wartime threat to Ukraine's nuclear reactors. Okay, let's say you waved all that away with your magical wand. Now there is the ugly economics of nuclear power. When it comes to cost and speed to market, there is no competition between solar and nuclear. Unless subsidized nuclear always loses on both counts. Yeah, okay. Well, that was interesting, I guess. They called out some things, but let's just finish off with wind, solar, and whatever else they're talking about are not renewable. They are rebuildables, meaning it takes fossil fuels to build them, and then when they wear out, it takes fossil fuels to build some more. And all of the process involved in making those renewables also involve fossil fuels, so those are not answers either. So that's just a big load of greenwashing. A bull is what it is. It's big bowl of bull. All right, happy recycling, Osama. Let's keep going. We're going to go until, I didn't start until about 12:20, so we'll go until about 1:20. Poppy Davis, yesterday a devastating wildfire erupted in Canada's Northwest Territories, consuming 1.1 million acres in around 12 hours. It's an area equivalent to approximately 1,160 football fields being torched per minute. Jesus. That's bad. There's a lot of fires going on. We know this. And we know this. What's up? Just checking in. Checking in on Rockfin and Colin. Y'all doing okay? All right. All right, let's see. Going to give me 1 second. Just checking out some chats here. And Colin. All right. Great. Let's keep going. Oh, this is good. From Jeff McFarland, The Emotional Spectrum of Climate Change. I mean, you know, this is a post. He's posting. we're not gonna. This is not hard and true. You know, not everything is black and white. Not everything is, you know, within the lines. There are nuances to everything, right? We know this. But let's see. Emotional spectrum of climate change: nihilist, given up; doomer, realist; apocalyptimist, hopeful, faith; techno-optimist, hopeful, ignorant; cautiously optimistic, toxic. That's funny. Blindly optimistic, transhumanist. Where are you on the spectrum? That's pretty good. I thought that was pretty funny. That was worthy of a read. Let's move on to what a lovely land we live in, where they care so much about the people of Ukraine, but not so much the people of the U.S. The U.S. has a record rise in homelessness in 2023, jumping 11% from 2022. Jeez, this is the biggest recorded increase since tracking began in 2007. Really? Homelessness tracking began in 2007? That seems a little odd to me. They weren't counting homeless people before 2007? Before then they were just like, they're homeless. Whatever. Man, that's messed up. It took them till 2007 to go like, maybe we should count these folks as people. Golly. But 2007 being the I think the pivot point for the Great Recession or whatever. I guess that's a good time to start tracking the homeless, right? Anyways, this is the biggest recorded increase since tracking began in 2007. We keep hearing that the U.S. economy is supposedly doing so well, but for financial oligarchs, not poor people. True stories. Real stuff here. I mean, I'm just more homeless people every day. From the Wall Street Journal, more Americans are ending up homeless at a record rate. The U.S. has seen a record increase in homeless people this year as the COVID-19 pandemic fades, according to the Wall Street Journal review of data from around the country. The journal reviewed available data from more than 300 entities that count homeless people in areas ranging from cities to entire states. Those entities accounted for 8 of every 9 homeless people counted last year. The data so far this year are up roughly 11% from 2022, a sharp jump that would represent by far the biggest recorded increase since the government started tracking comparable numbers in 2007. The next highest increase was a 2.7% jump in 2019, excluding an artificially high increase last year caused by pandemic counting interruptions. Excuse me. The journal's tally thus far includes more than 577,000 homeless people. The outstanding entities known as continuums of care declined to provide their numbers, didn't respond to requests, or couldn't be reached. Oh, boy. What are the factors at play, according to advocates? I wonder what it is. This year's surge reflects a host of pressures around the U.S., such as rising housing costs, lack of affordable rental units, and the nation's continuing opioid crisis, according to reports from nonprofits and government agencies counting the homeless. The biggest driver remains high housing costs. And do you think we could also put in there the minimum wage? Federal minimum wage not being raised since 2007, somewhere around there. I think it's 2007. It's the last time they raised the federal minimum wage, which is a long time ago, considering how expensive everything has gotten. The cost of living since then has obviously gone up quite a bit. but not so the federal. Other in local places they have a minimum wage. Like LA has I think a minimum wage of like $16 now. Still though, you try living on $16 an hour in LA. It's tough. I can tell you that. If you live in LA, you need like $30 an hour to live in LA. That should be the minimum wage. So 16 is about half of what it should be. Because LA is damn expensive. Let's see. Anyways. U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, a federal agency, also blamed growing homeless counts on housing costs and shortages. Well, we just don't have enough. That's why they're homeless. Sure. The agency said the 2023 numbers don't reflect recent efforts the Biden administration has undertaken to combat homelessness. Where are they? I'd really like to know. Such as awarding more than $500 million in new vouchers and grants to address rural and unsheltered homelessness. Anyways, speaking of opioid crisis, I see a lot of people are talking about that Netflix series. What is it called? How come I can't think of the title? I've been watching it though. It's pretty good. It'll come to me in a second, or somebody will say it in the chat. But the show about OxyContin is freaking scary and really good, really well done. And to anybody who's like, it's the science, trust the science. You just watch that series and understand that is an incredibly uninformed thing to say, right? Because these people are destroying lives without care. For profit. That's the major thrust of big pharma is to, destroy your life, keep you sick, painkiller, thank you. And do it, at the expense of your life for the money into their bank account. That's how it works. So people defending like the medical industry or big pharma or whatever as science or, we're helping people. No, that's ridiculous. It's wrong. That's not what's happening. We have a for-profit medical system, and the profit comes first. Your welfare comes after that. And so, start there. It always reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine. This friend of mine was having a procedure, and she wasn't supposed to drive home, so she asked me to pick her up. And I was like, yeah, I'll pick you up. So I picked her up to drive her home, and the first 10 minutes of the conversation was her complaining about how hard it was to get treated or seen or heard, or you know what I mean? Like, she just complained about how insanely like inefficient and what the medical establishment was, the medical industry. Her whole experience with it was just like completely like. And then we started talking about vaccines, and I was like, I'm not, she's like, are you vaccinated? I was like, no. And she's like, what? How come? It's science. I was like, are you listening to yourself right now? You just told me about how terrible it was, how terrible the care was for your, concern was for your health issues. And then you're telling me, like, it's science. Okay. Yes, painkiller. It did piss me off, for sure. Absolutely pissed me off. I actually had a loved one who was on OxyContin for a long time. And let me tell you, it was not pretty. And eventually, I think right now, I think at the moment, a lot of hospitals and doctors are they're ending the OxyContin prescription thing because I think it was a few years ago that they started ending it because of the the addictive nature of the drug. But it's been around for a long time. It's been prescribed for a long time by major medical institutions for killing pain. And but they realize that it's very addictive. They're starting to have liabilities, right? People are starting to sue the doctors and the medical industry for the fallout from this. So they, over the last few years have started to phase out OxyContin for people. Painkiller is a series on Netflix. Yeah, and it really does some damage. It's highly addictive for sure. Okay. William, I see you. Give me a moment. Oh, so I wanted to. Somebody was talking about masks. Wear a mask if you feel like it's helpful. It's all good, but just to understand that, for one, a virus is not. Most masks don't actually. Yes, you can say that maybe it stops the passage of like a sneeze or spit or sputum right through the mask. But it doesn't actually stop viruses. So one case in point. But here's a drawback of wearing a mask too is that you get a higher carbon dioxide exposure. Which, what does that do? It makes people dumb. It actually, and it's a health risk. So listen to this. Fresh air has around 0.04% CO2, while wearing masks more than 5 minutes bears a possible chronic exposure to carbon dioxide of 1.41% to 3.2%. I got this from Denver. Thanks, Denver, for linking this. Of the inhaled air. So what is that? That's times what? It's like 30 or 40 times your carbon dioxide exposure. Although the buildup is usually within the short-term exposure limits, long-term exceedances and consequences must be considered due to the experimental data. U.S. Navy toxicity experts set the exposure limits for submarines carrying a female crew to 0.8% CO2 based on animal studies, which indicated an increased risk for stillbirths. Additionally, mammals who were chronically exposed to 0.3% CO2, the experimental data demonstrates a teratogenicity, teratogenicity with irreversible neuron damage in the offspring, reduced spatial learning caused by brainstem neuron apoptosis, and reduced circulating levels of the insulin-like growth factor 1, with significant impact on 3 readout parameters, morphological functional marker. This chronic 0.3% CO2 exposure has to be defined as being toxic. You also lose like brain function, right? Increased exposure to CO2 decreases your brain function. So just letting you know, it's an adverse reaction to wearing a mask. If you want to know. And all the people that I've known and come in contact with who got COVID and were wearing a mask. Does it decrease your chances? Maybe. I don't know. It's up to you to decide. I I don't know. I've never really been in fear of it anyways. Creative experiments. Most buildings and houses aren't ventilated and have way more CO2 than a mask. Point taken, sure. There are lots of CO2 in buildings, right? Schools. Institutions and whatnot, for sure. But I mean, if you have it up against your face, you're gonna have a buildup of CO2 as well. Just something to consider. You know, you don't change your habits on account of me. Let's see. Here's a weird coincidence. Okay, so this is just, I know this is getting a little off into Spaceland. I was talking about the Las Vegas shooting with yes, chemicals in the mask. Yes, north south. Yes, I kind of briefly talked with William about the Las Vegas shooting, and I don't really want to talk about it right now. But a lot of people have questions about the Las Vegas shooting. We'll leave those aside. But people have put forth questions about what happened there. But here's an interesting, very strange coincidence, is that the Maui police chief is the same, was the incident commander for the 2017 Las Vegas shooting. And some people, this is from Tara Bull, and she says they'll tell you this is just a coincidence. I don't know. Maybe it is. It's an interesting coincidence, though. But, who knows? Just random. All right. You know what? For the last few minutes of the show, I'm going to jump off YouTube. YouTubers, I'll see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I promise. We're going to go to Rockfin and call in for the last couple of minutes of the show. I do want to play something from RFK Jr. about biolabs. So if you want to watch that, it's actually a very interesting video. If you want to watch that video, hop on over to Rockfin and hang out with me there for a couple of minutes. YouTubers, I'll see you tomorrow.